Joe Biden's farewell address and the ceasefire in Gaza. Is this the normal transition of power or a sign of something more significant? Here's the point. Less than 5 days away from the 47th presidential inauguration, and a ceasefire agreement is underway in Gaza between the State of Israel and the leaders of the terrorist organization Hamas, signaling a major breakthrough in diplomacy in what has been a stalemate for more than a year. Details of that agreement have been released by the Israeli cabinet, and while there are still many disputes on the table, and there are no guarantees that this ceasefire will be permanent or that Hamas will uphold its end of the deal, one thing is clear. One thing is absolutely certain. This deal would not have happened without the outcome of the November elections in the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has no doubt leveraged the American presidential election and the incoming Trump administration in order to bring this deal to the table. A deal that was in no way similar to the one offered by the Biden administration last May. Hamas simply would not budge on making any concessions, not for hostages, nor the placement of the Israeli Defense Force in the Philadelphia corridor. Nothing. That is all different now, due to what incoming National Security Advisor Mike Waltz called the Trump effect. According to Waltz, terrorist groups and rogue states have been making American hostages because they've only seen upside the last 4 years. Why not take more? Donald Trump has made it abundantly clear, not just with Hamas, but with groups around the world, including China, that the enemies of the United States will pay the highest price. During incoming Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's hearing with Tom Cotton, he said, "I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas." The Trump effect alone was the motivating factor for the expeditious action of this ceasefire negotiation. So much so that Biden State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a clear and unmistakable terms that Donald Trump deserved the credit for getting the ceasefire deal in Israel done. There is no doubt that leadership matters, and in many ways, what is happening in Gaza resembles the final year of Jimmy Carter's administration and the presidential election of 1980, where American hostages held by the Iranian government would not be released by diplomacy, nor by a military operation that claimed the lives of 8 American service members. The hostages were ultimately released on the day of Ronald Reagan's inauguration, moments after taking the oath of office. Joe Biden's 17-minute farewell address on Wednesday night will likely not be very memorable, much like his time as president. It was just a month ago that President Biden said he did not intend to give a final address to the American people. Nonetheless, he chose as one of his themes the tech-industrial complex, borrowing from a similar theme from President Eisenhower's address, where he warned against the development of the military-industrial complex. No stranger to irony or double standards, President Biden warned that this new technological oligarchy presents a dangerous concentration of power if left unchecked in the hands of the ultra-wealthy people. The reason such a statement is ironic is that since 2020, whether it was COVID information, differing viewpoints on the presidential election, voter integrity, or getting straightforward information about January 6th and the due process of law, tech giants at Meta, Twitter, YouTube, and many others were a part of an operation to censor and squash information at the direction of intelligence agencies in Biden's Department of Justice. The greatest danger at that time was the digital platforms suppressing any information that ran contrary to federal agencies under tight democratic control. So how should Christians think about all of this? Here's the point. We are quickly entering into a new cultural era in the United States and abroad where there is a pivot back to the right. How strong of a pivot still remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. There is a big sort going on, and major players who used to fawn over the left are quickly scrambling to find new positions of influence in the incoming Trump administration and even within the greater conservative movement. While some are changing their tune in an attempt to be honest brokers, opportunism abounds everywhere, and many simply are succumbing to pragmatism. Even Coca-Cola is on board with the incoming Trump administration. Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, longtime Democratic supporters, have both signaled their support of the incoming 47th president now that the elections are over. Christians must always be shrewd and never naive as to the times we're living in. Jesus said, "The sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light." We must always remember that these moments, while fleeting, are not trivial, and we must also capitalize on these opportunities to both advance the gospel and religious freedom in this country. When considering the end of the Biden administration and the beginning of the second Trump administration, Christians cannot waste the opportunity to influence policies that will defend life, protect marriage and religious liberty, promote parental rights and education, support the free market system, competition, the dignity of work, secure our borders, end human trafficking, and reestablish the United States as an international leader, including securing Israel in the Middle East and reducing the influence of menacing China. Christians do have a significant role to play in all of that. This is God's world. He created it, and we are called to engage in these critical moments faithfully until Christ returns.